This is really interesting because the superintendent, the new superintendent here, this is his second, this must be his third year. And so what he did is, actually he created ad hoc committees to do a lot of work, which is, and I heard him speak at one of the meetings for the new superintendent. And I think that there's no secret to what you do to improve schools. Everybody needs to know what what has to be taught, and be committed to teaching well, and hold people accountable. And I think that they created like mini groups, and you got a lot of people involved in the community, a lot of teachers, students involved on many committees. And they looked at curriculum, they looked at their assessments. Teachers made a commitment to teaching. There's no magic bullet. It just became exceedingly organized. And basically that's it. I actually took a look at, because the superintendent was sharing some of Brockton's work. And there's nothing like earth-shattering about it. It's just
no magic.
No magic. It's just the superintendent calls himself a grunt worker, and that's what it all is. It's just hard work on their behalf. They decided they were going to be an urban district that was going to succeed. Just got people to believe, and that's what you do, especially high school. What, 4,000 kids in high school? Yeah. It just took something big and it shrunk it into just manageable chunks so that they could talk about teaching and learning.
Well, the thing that impressed me about the article was the observation that they said disregarding MCAS, doesn't matter what your view on MCAS, teach stuff well. And I know when I started working with elementary school kids in Salisbury, fractions were out. I'm sorry, I'm a math teacher. Fractions are in. You want to disagree with Carl Friedrich Gauss or Isaac Newton or somebody? Fine, go out and argue with them, but I'm not going to. And I just think it's lunacy to say we don't like the English system. I tried to buy a meter stick at Staples. A what stick? Does it meter gas or what have you? They didn't even know what I was talking about. So, and I went down to, what's the orange place? Home Depot. And I said, how about a meter stick? Meters? What's that all about? So, society is dealing with fractions, and any mathematician is going to be worth his salt, or her salt, is going to know what a half and a third and all those weird things mean. So if MCAS insists that fractions aren't important, then MCAS is just on the wrong path. And how you cope with laws which are on the wrong path is always a horrendous situation. So the mission is to teach stuff well, despite no child gets ahead. That was one. The one on serious need for free play. I can't claim that I free play with the kids. I'm an adult sitting with kids, but they have a good time and we play. We play math. I just got through 15, 20 minutes with my almost 7-year-old grandson, and we had a great time. Stand up, turn around, put your hands behind your back. Here are 2 Cuisenaire rods, tell me what color they are. So they got to measure the length and compare the length and then the colors. And kids love to do that stuff. It's so much fun, and they begin to get a feeling and a visual sense of that. So it ought to be fun. And I've finished the first draft of my arithmetic book, and so I'm hoping to get some get that up and print it. But the whole, I've entitled it, You Can Count on It, and I've written it as acts and scenes, which means I'm thinking of it as a, so that's the big deal. The third thing that I want to bring up is this E.D. Hirsch Jr. And I thought the really significant part here is he's saying that cognitive psychologists agree that early childhood language learning, ages 2 to 6, is critical for later verbal competence. And I'll buy into that, but I think it applies to math every bit as much as it applies to verbal. You get kids going in math early. It's fun for them. They can do it. They see the patterns. They know to look for patterns. And I like particularly the Matthew effect, not because I belong to St. Paul's Church down here, and my father was an Episcopal clergyman and all that kind of jazz, but my grandson's name is Matthew. So Matthew effect. But the Matthew effect is the person who had 10 talents, went out and used those 10 talents and was given the person who had 5 was given 5 more. The person who had 3 went out and really did something with those 3 talents and was given 3 more. So they all got doubled. The person who only had 1 talent not only didn't get 1 more, but had that one taken away. Harsh, but I think that's what happens to kids whose parents are not literate. That's why Hispanics aren't born with less brains. There's just a lot of Hispanic families that are not literate through no fault of anybody's, except that the countries they come from, or the communities like Lawrence, are not particularly literacy oriented. So that's those things
I have 2 comments to make. One about the last thing that you said, and that is my experience in Salem working with ESL programs and working with kids and adults in ESL programs. That's clearly an issue that we've discovered that you need to address, that if people don't understand how their own language is structured in a literate way, it's very difficult to, and it's really funny because I work with an Episcopal priest down there, who has a very simple test for the kids who come to the drop-in center in terms of testing their literacy in their own language. He'll give them a sentence in English and say, can you tell me what that is in Spanish? And they'll tell him what it is in Spanish. And then he'll put a piece of paper and a pencil across the table and say, can you write it down? And they can't write it. They can't write the language. That they've picked up the language verbally, orally, but it hasn't been given to them in a full literacy sort of way. So that has required us to make some adjustments in how we are approaching English as a second language, the ELL classes. The other comment that I wanted to make is, and I should dig this study out, but the article about a serious need for free play. I had a conversation with a neighbor of mine who was a biology professor at UMass, Robert Stevens, Swifty. And he talked to me about a study that showed that if you take a child between the ages of 5 and 10 and you let them loose in the woods, playing unsupervised with other kids, if you go back and test them, that 5 to 10-year-old period is an extremely important time. If you go back and test them when they're 17, 18 years old, they are more engaged in the sciences, they're more engaged, they're much more sensitive to the environment around them, and they're called ecophiles, these kids. And my own personal experience as a kid growing up in New York City, between the ages of 0 and 10, my grandparents had a bungalow colony in the Catskill Mountains that I went to every summer with 50 acres that actually butted up against Yazmer's farm. And I would get up at 6 in the morning, have my bowl of oatmeal, and I wouldn't come back till sundown. I spent every daylight hour in the woods with my brother and other kids from the bungalow colony exploring. And in my own orientation towards the world, I am much more sensitive, I think, than kids I grew up with who didn't get that. So that whole idea of play, the whole idea of allowing kids to learn lessons on their own, I can tell you, I don't get poison ivy as an adult anymore, because I learned a pretty good lesson when I was younger.
Oh, yeah, all right.
But I can also still, even to this day, I can still go out to Moseley Pines find salamanders, because I know
Where they're gonna be,
where they
what
would be.
they're up to.
But and that's all stuff that I learned between 5 and 10. I never learned that in the classroom. So that whole idea of play, that whole idea of allowing kids to have those experiences, authentic experiences, is
Well, in the woods,
That
it's other
goes,
people.
that goes into just about any subject, and it's, when we talk about play, really allowing children to be exposed to different stimuli, to react to them in the way that they want to, and to pursue the ones that particularly interest them. You know, exposure alone isn't going to do it. It's a curiosity, it's a celebration of that curiosity. And when you were out in the woods with your friends, it was, hey, if you found the salamander before somebody else found the salamander, made you want to know where to find the salamanders. It was part of what, you know, because they would celebrate you as the king salamander catcher. You know, so it really, and I think it's a question of how do we make all learning at all levels relevant to the kids. And that's what happened in those woods that you were in. That's what happens when a kid gets really hooked on a book. It's meaningful to them for some reason. That's what happens with your grandson. When your grandson is trying to figure out what size the Cuisinart rods are, right? And what color they are.
It is,
Yeah, Dr. O would like to.
Yeah, I'm
Throw a
a
comment in.
urologist who sits in the back. So
Well, so it's all up. I'll buy one out of 3.
I don't
Math
profess,
lecture.
I first of all, I walked in late, so I don't know how this got off to its start. I don't profess to have the learnedness in terms of educating youth that are amongst the people in front of me. But I have learned something in the last 7, 8 years of coming to these things and doing my research. How does this all apply to what we do every day? That's the real critical factor, because I grew up in a little different environment than Mr. Menon did, and I never saw a salamander. But I still believe that we have an obligation to all children to make sure they come out with certain skills. Now, I'm dumb. What are those skills? Well, I hope they all would be able to read, and I hope they would all be able to write, and I hope they all would be able to know some math, and I hope they would all be able to know some science. And so, I mean, I don't design curricula, that's not what I do. But you have to take what you talk about here and make it work in the classroom and what we do every day. I'm a simpleton, and there's a couple of terms I've been throwing around now amongst the people I communicate with, and it's now about seeing as believing. Mm-hmm. Show me the stuff. Mm-hmm. This is what we have to start talking about. If we believe, based on the conversations we have had here, that we're going in the wrong direction, and don't get me wrong, I believe that kids need to explore, and I believe that kids need to have fun at what they do. Then we need to direct it that way. And that's where the meaningful discussion should come from. I mean, there's a high school senior here. I'm not so sure it's fun right now, okay, to some of them. And I don't know why that is, but we've allowed it to become that, and that's even our higher education professionals who've made it so that maybe if you come through and you don't have 4 or 5 APs, you're not a top student. So if you took the time to go out and explore the universe in some other sort of way by spending maybe a summer in a commune looking at salamanders, you wouldn't do as well. That's what I'm talking about. Okay? I don't know how you do that, but you're the learned educators and I'm the dumb shit.
I had a chance to interview, let's say, Friday, 3 students, because I had to present the Superintendent's Award. It's an annual award. And I'm not going to say who they are, but I'm sure Alex knows them. And these are top students. I don't know when they have time to sleep. They do they do unbelievable things. But listen to them talk about what they care about. They just have the mindset. They're not locked in. In fact, they're anything but locked in. which makes them, I think, unique. And this, you know, Alex himself is not locked in. And so, you know, can all kids be like that? I don't think so, because, you know, these 3 kids are locked in and they love science and they love what they're doing. You know, other kids just love whether it's the arts or sports. And where does that all begin and come from? I don't know, right? And I think you're going to find Amy Sullivan, who's presenting tonight with Cheryl and with Karen Brand, you know, some recommendations from kindergarten. You're going to find some unique things that are coming out of that.
See, because I do consider myself an educator, but I'm at a different level than what we're talking about here. And I see it even at my level as things have become so complex. We force the student, or in my case, the intern or resident, to study general whatever for so long that it's so technologically advanced now, we're starting to talk about saying, okay, here's a certain amount of the basics that you need, and then we free it up, and this is what I'm sort of talking about. You have to define what is the standard or what is the basic that we need, and then gear it so that maybe they all have the opportunity at an earlier age to go to their field of interest, wherever that may be. I'll give you an example. Now, if you were, and there was a student who came through here who is very well known, very prominent last year, and he's done very well for himself. And I don't want to mention his name. And isn't one of my kids. But again, if you look at it, and I'm a kid who's interested in computers. All right? Where's my AP computer class so I can excel? I have to say, well, I'll take AP Math, and I'll take AP Science, and I'll take AP History because I need 3 or 4, 7 or 8 APs to be competitive. But where do I get that knowledge?
There is an AP Computer Science course. I used to be on the test
There
development
isn't one
committee.
here. I mean, again, there's fewer and fewer things. I just picked that as an example. We could pick...
AP Mongolian, you might know.
Or you know what I'm saying? We need to allow the kids, and to me, based on what I've read, what I'd like to see, this has to begin at the elementary level. And we can't be like 4 or 5 kids in every class. You have to be able to break the kids down into their own groups of abilities, speed with which they learn, motivational skills that they need, areas of interest to explore, and try to get it all there, because you're right, we can't be experts in everything, but I would hope that there's a basic education that we think we should provide to our kids. And to me, it's some of the things that I talked about. But we need to start to be able to open it up if we want to be that school that stands out, that allows the kid the avenue that if he wants to pursue Mongolian, we find it for him. Now, I grew up in a city in Newark, and I remember this kid, Chris Kolkowski, bright kid, okay? This is in 1960-something. He went cross town to Columbia from our school to study Chinese,
Right.
okay?
Right.
Now, there's no way in hell that I could have ever learned Chinese. I wasn't that smart. That's what we need to be able to do for the kids at all levels. And don't get me started, because there's avenues that we think we do it in well in this district, because this is really what I care about right now, that we really don't. Okay? Another expression I'm going to toss around to you comes from a Jesuit priest who's the president of the school my son goes to. Good enough isn't. Good enough isn't. Okay? So, in finalizing what I've had to say, I don't know what you were talking about, it's very nice, but let's get it to the point where we can bring it into the active classroom and utilize it, so we are allowing these kids in 3rd grade to go out and explore salamanders, if that's what they want to do.
Well, the reason why I brought this up is that I feel we are woefully inadequate in our mathematics education. And the people that you want to have involved in your research, I don't care whether they're looking for a PhD in math, they just are able to, you say, you need to learn this. Fine, I'll learn it, and have the confidence. The kids I work with, most of them say they like math. Now, I don't know whether they just like being with me, or they like the Oreo cookies I bribe them with, or what have you, but I'm convinced they can get polynomial calculus, differentiation, and integration in the 6th grade. I've done it. So it's not the kids that are having trouble.
No.
It's the school systems that are having trouble. When I say free play, these kids are having fun. I ask them, are you having some fun? I mean, I know it's math. Did you discover some pattern that's new? Well, now most of us like to see something that makes us feel more powerful. I see the pattern. And when they get onto that early on, then later on, they're already into, if I just poke around a little bit, I'll find it. And my application to a school system would be put more teachers earlier and bigger classes later, so that you make sure that all the kids get into this mode where they know they can find patterns and do things, because once you've got them hooked, they're not going to give up on education. It's too much fun, it's too interesting, it may be hard work, but so's winning in Monopoly.
We all want to see progress.
Can I get Alex
to make the final comment,
Alex.
because we are at 7.
Yeah. Everybody thinks that everybody who's taking all these AP classes are miserable. Is that true? Does anybody having fun?
If it's a class that you like and you are passionate about, especially if it's something that you're interested in, it's worth the effort. But I mean, I've always had a predisposition for history and literature, and I wouldn't put myself through AP math or science courses because that just wouldn't interest me. There's a variety of AP classes you can choose at the high school. They don't have all of them or a huge number, but there's still plenty of options to fit most of your interests. So I mean, if you like it, it's good. If you don't like it, it's awful. So.
Yeah, that's
I
right,
think you're
but
gonna-
that's it.
I'm
If the
sorry,
kids,
Alex, you're going to find that that's a lot like life.
Yeah, but bottom line is, no matter what, we all want to see that we progress.
Right.
And that's a real critical factor in the years that go from K through 12 and 19.
when I feel stronger, it's better.
Great. I get it.
All right, well, thank you all for entertaining my
I'd like to, in the absence of Mayor Holliday, I would like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Cole will be arriving later as well. Before we do the pledge and mission statement, I would point out that we do have 2 items that have been extracted from the agenda. Those items are 9 and 10, superintendent's goals and school committee goals. We should be on track for certainly doing superintendent's goals and having a presentation on that at the next school committee meeting, and might even actually be close to school committee goals as well at that point. But those were extracted from tonight's agenda. I would like to call this meeting to order. We would rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to read the mission statement of Newburyport Public Schools. Newburyport Public Schools are committed to the intellectual, physical, social development and engagement of every student within a culture of high expectations for individual and group learning. Our students experience rigorous academic challenge, are intellectually curious, and express themselves creatively. Our students enhance their well-being by applying knowledge and skills about nutrition, fitness, and healthy behaviors. Our schools are an inclusive and supportive community. As part of this community, our students demonstrate values of personal integrity, sensitivity, and social responsibility. Our schools partner with parents and community in significant ways to help achieve their mission. Members of our school community, teachers, parents, staff, and administration support this mission every day, in every classroom, on every field of play, and in every activity. Thank you. Before we go to our first session of public comment, I would like to say emphatically that I will not be doing a magic trick to open this meeting. I never will be doing a magic trick.
At least not that one.
We have our first period of public comment, and if there's anybody in the audience who would like to share anything with us, now is the opportunity to do that. Please feel free to come forward. There will be another session of public comment later on. Hearing none, if we could move to the consent agenda. Do we have any warrants?
Yes, we do. I move that the following main bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate to $35,127.91 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Please note there are 2 absent. Unanimous.
Second one, I move that the following main bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate to $273,996.26 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There is a conflict with the mayor as the employer.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Please note that 5 in favor, 2 not present.
That's it.
We have a set of minutes to approve, minutes of September 19th. So I have a motion.
I move to approve the Newburyport School Committee regular meeting minutes from Tuesday, September 19th, 2011.
Second. Any discussion, comments, changes? My comment would be, I really appreciated, Mrs. Kennedy, that in the listing of the introduction of the new high school department chairs, that the previous chairs were named as well. I appreciate that very much. Is there an opportunity to look this over? Hearing no changes, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously passed again. Alex, you're on, our high school representative.
Thank you. So on Thursday, the half day, seniors are going to go see a production of Voltaire's Candide at the Huntington Theater. We have been reading it in classes. I just finished Wednesday of last week. It's good. And we are excited at it's being run through the English department. Also, next Wednesday, the 12th, there's going to be a club fair in this room, and just about every club in the school is going to have their own booth to advertise clubs that might not be known to other students. Furthermore, on October 22nd, there's going to be a craft fair run by the junior class. I think it runs for most of the day, and I'm not quite sure what they're doing because I haven't gotten an update on them about that yet. And finally, once again, it's a month into school, color day is coming up, and there is no freshman advisor for the freshman class again. So as a result, there are no freshman class officers or organizational system at all. And I'm not quite sure what the deal is as to why. I just know that there are a lot of children, my sister included, who are interested in running for class office and aren't able to because they're being invited. That's just about it then, right there. So generally quite good at the high school.
Anybody have any questions or feedback from us?
Well, I have a question about what is generally the holdup with getting a class advisor? Have anything there? Well, the class advisor, were you aware of that being a
No, I know that Mr. McCarron is the class advisor. Last
To the freshman class.
the freshman.
They were able to find advisors for the sophomores in the class of 2014. 2015, they haven't found anyone yet, as far as I know.
But we had the same problem last year
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the freshman class.
and that's why the parents went and stepped into it.
Yeah, right. I will follow up with Mr. Penn.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Honestly.
All right, thank you very much, Alex. Consider yourself having discharged your duties. And you are myself.
We'll finish when you
Good
can.
night, Alex. Good night, Alex.
Thank you very much. I would, the next item on the agenda, which I would note at several minutes after 7 is item number 7, is the kindergarten ad hoc recommendation update. I would turn that over to Mark.
Thank you. And I would like to invite Amy Sullivan, principal of the Brown School, Karen Brandon, director of special education, to join Cheryl Sweeney. And the three were leaders, or the leaders of the kindergarten ad hoc committee. And if you recall, there was a presentation, I believe it was January 18th. And on January 18th, the presentation is actually in your packet. So this is an update of the work that was done since that time. I wanted to commend Karen and Cheryl and Amy for their work with classroom teachers. And I believe this presentation is approximately 10 minutes. 10-minute presentation or so.
Say 10 minutes, maybe just a
10 minutes.
little more.
Followed by questions and answers. And I had a chance to take a look at the packet a little earlier today. And I love the hands. I love the hands. What's all hands on deck, right?
That's what we were thinking of.
That's right.
Just need a minute to say that.
Show the new copies.
Preliminary.
Yes, you do have copies. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a couple of extra ones.
Bruce, Mark has a couple. Bruce,
Is that the same?
okay.
It's okay.
Bruce gave me one.
They're two different
Yeah,
ones.
I've got one on.
Oh, okay.
They're two different ones.
They're different.
Oh, the different?
They're different.
The one in your packet was the presentation we made when we started the committee.
Oh, okay.
And then the one with the hands is the update.
Got it. This is your review.
That was good.
I've already presented.
Right, that's what I looked tonight.
Yeah, you've seen this.
This one will get added to the website, guys.
Yes, yes, after we present it tonight.
Great.
Working on the other side.
Okay. So we were here last spring to talk about the kindergarten ad hoc committee. And here we are again to update you on what has happened since our last presentation. So just to recenter us, or refocus us, the kindergarten ad hoc committee's charge was to gather information, collect data about student achievement, school readiness, particularly the structure of full and half-day programs in the state, before and after school opportunities in the Newburyport schools kindergarten programs, and the committee would provide the superintendent with information and recommendations at the time for his entry report. So our work has continued. Our guiding question was, what do we need for our kindergarten program to be an exemplary program inclusive of 21st century skills? And back in the spring media calendar, these were our initial recommendations after meeting with the ad hoc committee, I believe 5 times, and conducting several site visits last fall to exemplary kindergarten programs. Our recommendations were that we would like to see a full-day district-funded kindergarten program here in Newburyport. We would like to have common planning time for teachers at the kindergarten and preschool level. We saw a high level of student independence in many of the exemplary programs we went to, and that was something that we thought we could increase here in Newburyport. We also saw students that were able to make quick transitions from one activity to another that were pretty seamless. We felt the need, based upon some of our assessments, to look closer at a direct, highly structured phonics instruction and also phonemic awareness instruction. Transition planning, due to the structure of our schools here, more transition planning needed between particularly pre-K and K and then K to 1. Better inclusionary practices, frequent assessment and data collection, curricular consistency between classrooms, purposeful play, and the recommendation of full-time kindergarten assistants. So that's not new, that's what we had brought you last spring. When we left, we said, what would our next steps be? And that was to compare some of our site-based observations with practices and procedures at the Brown School, to look internally to develop our own findings at the Brown, what is great and what could be greater, and then make final recommendations. So that's why Karen and Cheryl and I are here tonight, to make some final recommendations. But before we do that, we wanted to tell you what has happened already directly as a result of the kindergarten ad hoc committee. So going back to one of the initial recommendations, frequent assessment and data collection. One thing that we implemented this fall was the use of DIBELS testing. DIBELS, for those of you who may not be aware, stands for Dynamic Indicators of Early Literacy Skills. We were not doing DIBELS testing, though. The other grades, the Bresnahan grades 1 and 2 were. I believe at one time Brown did, and so we brought that back just so that it would be more fluid, more information, more assessments of like letter ID, initial sounds, and sight words and things like that. So the first round has already taken place this fall, and we've already had a dated meeting to look at the results of that. Yielded some pretty nice results, but we still do see that we need to focus on phonemic awareness at the pre-KK and grade 1 level. We have started to look at student work more frequently at our staff meetings, and it's become a regular component of our in-service days where teachers will bring examples of student work. We'll talk about, you know, what we think that student work is. Does it reach our expectation? Is it a good exemplar? So that's been a shift. Last year we also implemented math GMAID testing, which I know you've heard about at other grades. Excuse me. So that was implemented last year, and we will be doing that again in January and June of this year. We held our kindergarten screening in the spring, and this year we took a look at children that seem to be at risk based upon their spring scores, and we rescreened all of those students actually just last week. And we'll use that as another source of data to try to identify children that might need early intervention starting very early. So a lot of movement, I think, with frequent assessment and data collection. We will also be developing data teams. Under Angela Bick has put out a proposal for the schools for data teams, as well as we also have data meetings embedded into our calendar for the year. So not just taking the data, but looking at it, analyzing it, utilizing it to inform our instruction. So this is, the photographs I am pleased to tell you are not photographs from last spring. This is work that has currently happened within the first month of school. So direct, highly structured phonics instruction. Last spring, we had Emily Russin, our literacy coach, provide professional development to all the kindergarten teachers. They met over a course of 8 weeks on Friday mornings for a half day, and they participated in an 8-week, I would call it almost like a course, but you know, more like an in-service on phonemic awareness. And just this fall, we gave them a pacing guide to help teach their Fontes and Pinnell phonics instruction, so that we really said to the teachers, you know, during the first week of school, we want you to teach, well, not the first week, during last week, we want you to teach this lesson, and then move on to the next set. And so we'll be discussing how that has gone during our in-service on Thursday. So just trying to take a look if everyone is teaching consistently at the same time, the same lesson, and our scores, if they're not improving or if they are improving, then hopefully that will help with better curricular consistency and also help with our phonics instruction. So those are some things that we have done. Inclusionary practices, we kind of group this with good instruction, differentiation, small group. Last year we had Title I small group instruction begin at the Brown School in February. And that wasn't, too atypical to what a lot of schools do, particularly at the kindergarten level, but we felt that we needed to get to the children earlier, and I'm pleased to say that small group instruction and Title I services have already begun at the Brown School. Kathy Ryan provides that reading support to our students, and as you can see, this is a picture of a classroom, Mrs. Leahy's kindergarten class, where she is already working on small groups. And typically that's something that we started much later in the year, so that exposure is great. Last year we made interventions available for students who might be struggling. We had LLI, level of literacy instruction. It was offered during school, before school. We had a summer program, and we also implemented aerobics and Lexia this year, computer-based programs which will help students build a lot of their phonemic awareness and early literacy skills. So those were two big changes that were met with very good success. One of the things that we consistently saw, and I said in my opening, was a high level of student independence. And that wasn't necessarily about our curriculum, or our instruction. It was more about how do we manage the classroom of 18 5-year-olds so that we can be able to teach small groups or to teach guided reading. What should we do with the rest of the class? And that's always, that's always the struggle of a kindergarten teacher, is how to make the work meaningful for students. And the teachers spent a lot of time building their centers in the classroom, but we felt that there was a lot of time being put into those centers that changed every week. So therefore a lot of instruction, a lot of support needed for the students to go and ask the teacher, what am I doing at this center? So we tried to find something that could foster literacy independence in the classroom. And this July, I have to say, I just have the best staff. Every single kindergarten teacher in the middle of July, on one of the 100 degrees day, got in a car and went to Rentham, and we learned about the Daily 5, which isn't a curriculum, it's a way to manage your classroom and to set up literacy centers that promote independence. So we've been working on that for the first few weeks of school. It helps to improve consistency between the classroom. But basically the literacy centers are very simple. They're read to self, where students are taught to find a quiet spot in the room and to sit and to read their books. Even if they come in and they don't know how to read, we show them what read to self means. They work on growing their stamina. So the first time, it was maybe 30 seconds the first day. The first time a child broke stamina, we just stopped, teaching read to self that day. We didn't engage that child that wanted to go up and to ask the teacher, because they will get used to that routine, and then that will be the problem all year in terms of when the teacher's trying to work with a small group. So I saw some bar graphs last week, and I think in one classroom they were up to 17 minutes of 5-year-olds reading to themselves, and another classroom was up to 18. So the goal is to get to 30 minutes of independence, and I have some pictures that I'll show you. So read to self is one of them, read to someone else, which most classrooms aren't there yet. We haven't even introduced that yet, and the children think like that's the golden ticket, to read to someone. And then eventually it will be work on writing, so work on their journals, listen to reading, and then maybe more of a traditional center, like working on their word work. So those are things that we're slowly implementing so that we can get to the small group and guided reading. But also we know from the research that just having children read and write more is what's going to promote their literacy and their fluency. So these are some posters in some of our classrooms. The blue, I think, is hanging in Mrs. Carroll's classroom, who's got stamina, and you can see the Energizer Bunny and the Bruins hockey player, the ballet dancer. This is what we tell the children to do their stamina. You have to read the whole time, you have to stay in one place, and you have to read quietly. Every child, when they came in, had read to self browsing bags or boxes or however the teacher set it up. So as we've been assessing the children, we have changed those books to be good fit books for them or just right books for them that are on their reading levels. But we taught them that you can read to self no matter how you came into kindergarten. You can read the pictures. If you know some words, you can read the words, or you can retell a book that we've already read. And so here are some pictures of children reading to self, and I have a little video that we'll see. Some more pictures of the children engaged. So as you can see in the top right-hand corner, that obviously that child is not reading that book, but he thinks he's reading that book. He's reading the pictures, or he's telling a story to himself. So I wanted to show you a quick little video of how we think the Daily 5 has helped to build independence, stamina, will help the teachers get to guided reading, help them to be able to do more data collection, and also give the children increased reading and writing opportunities. So this just takes a second to set up on my computer. But what you'll see is Mrs. Herzig introducing a Daily 5 lesson, and then we'll transition into Mrs. Leahy's class with guided reading. And I might just sort of fast forward as we go along, but so you can just sort of see what it looks like already in the first 3 weeks of the kindergarten classrooms, which is very different, I think, than where we were at last year at this time of the year. Just want to make sure my volume is up, and it is. Mrs. Herzig is a true kindergarten teacher. She has a very soft voice, so I might have to interject. Here they're doing a phonics lesson, so I just wanted to throw this in there. This is one of our Fontes and Pinnell phonics lessons. And the camera does steady out a little bit in a few minutes. So I'm just going to fast forward this piece to get into Mrs. Herzig talking about setting the class up to read to self.
It's the same, simultaneous.
And I think right here she's going to set up the children and start stamina. They said they read 8 minutes yesterday for Read to Self. My little boy said that was so long. So I know we're having a hard time hearing it, so I think I'll just sort of talk over the video a little bit. So she's asking them if they're ready to get ready for Daily 5, and they're telling her that they read quietly, they stay in one spot. And so now here come the book bins, where the children have their individual books, and they're going to go find a spot in the room to begin reading on their own. And, sorry, eventually what you'll hear is a quiet classroom. So I think traditionally you might think that you wouldn't do this with children until they actually knew how to read. And that's where the shift with balanced literacy is to expose them to literature right from the get-go and give them opportunities. I love little girls spread out on the couch. That's so comfortable. So this is one classroom, and I'm going to transition you right into another classroom to show that it really doesn't look much different in any of the classrooms, and that's what we're trying to build is the consistency. And you do have to see this little boy as he counts every apple so diligently. And we tell him he's a reader. You know, he may be counting, but he's reading. The idea. I think that's 10 apples up on top. And this is a different classroom now. This is actually Mrs. Leahy's classroom, where the children are also engaged to read to self, and she has already started doing some guided reading. So you'll see her working with 2 or 3 children right up on the table. And this video is over a week old. So this was like the 3rd weekend to school. And you can see how quiet it is and how the children are completely independent.
I think what's great about this is we hadn't traditionally started guided reading at the kindergarten level until January, February. So we're getting a great jump on putting this into place. So I'm excited to see where kids end this year compared to last year.
Was that also due to a shift in Kathy Ryan in September instead of?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And we thank you very much for that.
That was one of the biggest recommendations that came out of the kindergarten ad hoc.
So this is going to end, and then I just have a few more things to show you. But I just think the video is so powerful, so I really wanted to show it to you today. And I want to thank the teachers who were brave enough to say that we could show video of them. We appreciated that. So that just gives you an idea. Let me see if I can shut this down.
I wonder if this can be taught at 1st and 2nd grade as well.
Well, 1st and 2nd grade is, the Daily 5.
The Daily 5.
1st and 2nd grade is already doing a lot of the guided reading
Right.
in the board study. In fact, I happened to be at Bresnahan today, and I got to visit all 1st and 2nd grade classrooms, and what I saw was consistency. When I went in one room, and then I went in the next room, they were all working on the same thing. And, when I was in 1st grade, they were doing guided reading. When I got to 2nd grade, they were doing writer's workshop. And it was really nice to be able to go classroom to classroom and see that consistency. And I think that's what we're trying to build at the Brown.
Well, and I think
it's beginning.
we've just spent a month on Read to Self. I mean, that's, we're not trying to teach them a new center every week. And eventually, when we feel that they have that, we'll move to work on writing. And so they don't need direction. We might up the ante a little as the year goes on as to what they're doing when they're reading to self or they're working on their writing. But we're not trying to reteach them something new. So these are the centers that we're going to gravitate to implementing full force. But I just wanted to tell you that there have been some other initiatives that have been implemented this year. So curricular consistency, which I mentioned. Our math program, the investigations, is now implemented for the first full year. So that has worked its way all the way down to kindergarten now. We completed our math curriculum maps last spring. And as the rest of the district, we're working on Common Core Standards alignment. And so this is what we want to leave you with as our final recommendations. Not that our work is done, but our recommendations we feel should be at this point. And we see these as recommendations that cannot necessarily be something that can be implemented right away. Maybe they're a year out or several years out. But we still feel very strongly that there should be a full day district-funded kindergarten program. We would really love to be able to see our kindergarten teachers have some common planning time embedded during their day, and the hope of maybe being at the Bresnahan might be able to, with a schedule, make that happen. We would like the committee to consider helping the Brown School beginning next year change our school hours to an earlier arrival and dismissal time, perhaps in alignment with the Bresnahan that starts a half an hour earlier than us, so that we, hopefully, if we do transition there, we might all be on the same schedule, or even if we don't, that, the hours are more appropriate for our youngest children. As we know, it's a late start and a late dismissal, 9 to 3:30, and children getting off the bus at 4:15 at 5 years old is kind of tough. That we still work on better transition planning between grade levels. We would love to see full-time kindergarten assistants, continued alignment with the Common Core Standards. We've done a lot of work with our preschool model this year. As you may recall, we began an extended day program this year. So that's sort of a pilot. We're seeing how that goes. But hopefully, if we have more space, we can continue to look at what kind of preschool offerings do we want to have. Currently, we have a 2-day, a 3-day, a 4-day, a 5-day, and a 5-day extended day program. It's a lot of different programs that we're juggling. We'd like to see more collaborative work to continue to strengthen our core curriculum. We would like to implement more opportunities for interventions and differentiated instruction. And we're working this year on building community partnerships with some of the early childhood programs in the surrounding communities, as well as the Newburyport Mothers Club. We met with the Mothers Club this summer, and we're hoping to publish an article in their December-January newsletter, as well as invite them in to the Brown School start in December to have a story time, maybe with Emily Russin, our literacy coach, and just provide early literacy information to parents. So, Cheryl, I think you have.
No, you did a great job, thank you.
There is one thing I forgot. So the Daily 5, we're doing a book club on that, and then the next step is called the Cafe, and that is comprehension, accuracy, fluency, and expanded vocabulary. So it's not necessarily changing again the curriculum or instruction, but helping the teachers to focus in when they're doing their guided reading. How do you work on comprehension and accuracy and fluency and expanded vocabulary? So everything that we're already doing in the balanced literacy program, but really kind of honing in on the areas that we would like the children to become more literate with. So that will be the next step, which will probably start to do some work around this more at the January timeframe when we've already had guided reading in place for 3 or 4 months.
Great questions or feedback?
I just want to say, it is amazing what in a very short period of time you've been able to put into action. And it's so surprising, but it shouldn't be surprising, how the kids can seriously soak it all in and take it in like a sponge. And thank you for bringing the video. That was great.
Well, I have to tell you, as a principal and a parent, my daughter was one of the children in that video, and she cannot sit and look at a book at home like that. So it is amazing. Because, I think a part of us think, well, they're just kindergarten, it's their first experience. But if you raise the expectation and the bar, then we know that they will, rise to the challenge. And I'm really very, very proud of the teachers in the work that they're doing. And I think that the staff has worked just incredibly hard. We really couldn't ask for better early childhood teachers over at the Brown School. So I really want to recognize them. It's one thing for administration to say, oh, we should try this, but it's another for everyone to get on board and really work hard. So I'm very, very pleased with all of our progress.
Cheryl, any other comments that you'd like to add?
No, I would agree with Amy that the teachers really took this on. We started off as an ad hoc committee, and there were kindergarten teachers on that committee. There were parents, and I just saw a tremendous, I think, cultural change around maybe more common practices, providing a core curriculum that was easily labeled. A lot of staff development took place around these things like phonemic awareness, but for these teachers in the committee who went out to visit these exemplar schools, to come back and say, wow, that's something I'd really like to try, not, well, we're as good as we're going to be, so, we're finished. I didn't see any of that, and I think teachers are working more collaboratively. I do wish that they would have more common planning time, and it's because there are itinerant art, music, PE teachers that have to travel, so that those teachers don't get an opportunity to sit and plan things together. I think that's huge. I think we really need to talk about ways to transition our early education students into first grade. There needs to be more communication between kindergarten and first grade teachers on an ongoing basis. And that's something I think, we're going to have to plan for and make sure it happens, that we're transferring all this data that we've received through all these interventions to the teachers that are going to have these kids next year. And Stephanie, you're right. The teachers, it is incredible to walk into a classroom and to watch 18 children reading It doesn't matter if it's for a minute or 2 minutes, and, you know, the teachers are, okay, now we're stopping, this is all we could do today. But we're gonna do it again tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to increase stamina. There is, I think, the thrust for much more independence for students at the kindergarten level. Many more opportunities for us with the 2 computer programs to supplement the phonemic instruction that's going on. I just think it's when I think about even where we were at the beginning of last year to the accomplishments that have occurred, and that's one of the things we really wanted to bring to you, things that are already in place and are working, and the teachers realize they're working, and the principal realizes they're working. So I'm very excited.
What reaction have you had from parents as you talk about the goal of having a full-day district-funded kindergarten?
I feel that the vast majority of parents would be dancing in the streets. They are very much, you know, I think that particularly parents that may have, you know, migrated north from Boston or from some of the larger cities, that they were accustomed to that. I think that there, you know, are still some parents that always have the sort of the fear, you know, maybe the half day is more appropriate because maybe my child is not quite ready. So I think that you'll always have that, and that's why the half day looks like an attractive option. But I think that we certainly do the very, very best we can with a half day program, but it's rushed. What it comes down to by the time we get the children in and out and transition, and then a 30-minute special, it comes down to an hour and a half of instruction a day for all core areas. And in the full day program, we have a minimum of an hour and a half literacy. So I mean, there's the difference. I mean, so I think that you know, once you talk to parents about you know, what you think best practices are, I think the research certainly speaks for itself. Certainly, all the parents and the community members and teachers on the ad hoc committee really wanted to see a full day program that was tuition free and something that the city would invest in as being a priority for our children. We certainly recognize that we're not unlike some of the local towns or other cities around us, but you know, if we went out and we looked at exemplar programs, you know, exemplar programs had moved to a full day model and had moved to a full day model, some of them some 20 years ago.
And Amy, isn't it true that you have a current waiting list for full-time?
I do.
Mm-hmm. So it says to me that more parents want that full-day option. We're always running a waiting list for children to get into full day.
I actually have several phone calls a week from parents of even preschool students that are looking for a full-day program. We currently don't offer that at our preschool. We have an extended day that goes till 1:15. So you know, it just could be signs of the time, working families and things like that. But I think particular for people that are thinking of relocating or just moving here, they're surprised when I say, oh, we actually don't have a full day program at preschool, or you know, there's a tuition for kindergarten. I think it's maybe less of a surprise to perhaps families that, you know, have been in the area for a while.
Many of our private programs in the area are now offering full day at both preschool and kindergarten programs, so it's a competitive thing too.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. I want to thank Cheryl and Karen and Amy for all of your hard work. I had a fresh set of eyes when I got here a year ago, okay, and to see the turnaround is, I consider it significant, and I think it will have a significant play and impact on our students as they go through our system. Not only that, I'll predict even greater things are going to happen as a result of Amy's work with the Mothers Club, and even what's going on in Creasman. So I think that it really is exciting. You know, it's really a pleasure to hear you say that you're great teachers. And, you know, I said, you know, early on when I talked about an ad hoc, and I always said I believed in the teachers. And so now you have a program that teachers have bought into, but they bought into the belief that students can learn at an early age. Okay, when you believe in something, you'll do it. So, thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was just gonna say, we're gonna have to go around.
Give him a block.
We're gonna have to go around. You just sit right there.
I think the agenda brings us to our next period of public comment. Is there anybody out there who has some comment? Mr. Warren?
Yes, I start off by saying I really enjoyed the presentation. It was excellent and informative. I'm not a primary school teacher, so a nursery school teacher, but I do have a 6-year-old grandson. It's been said that he has trouble making quick transitions, so I was very curious. I see benefit for people who can concentrate on something and not be put off by the distractions of, well, life. And yet, when you're doing group activities, you need to have them be able to shift. So there's a tug of war. I know some of my best students, when they get focused on something, you'll not get them off it. And it's wonderful what they accomplish. But on the other hand, so I don't know whether you have reference books or articles or something where you would send me to educate me about quick transitions, their benefits, and perhaps their deficits.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Additional comments?
Thank you.
Dr. Orlando?
It's the broken record again. You know, we're starting to hear at the beginning of school committee, once again, all the nice things that we would really like to have. And as was indicated as one of the recommendations here, a fully funded full-day kindergarten costs money. There's a lot of issues still out there that I think we have to come to terms with and deal with early on. There's the issue of foreign language at the middle school. There's some other value-added things that were talked about last year. And there are some issues at the high school where I think they need some help. There's going to be funding issues that are going to come up. You need to make some harsh choices, and I think you need to start talking about them now. That being said, a couple of comments. Again, I say the same thing over and over again, the broken record. You know, these 6:30 meetings need to be ticketed to a given topic. Perhaps the next one should be full-day kindergarten. Put it out in the press, see what you get, and you'll have people come here. Those would be my comments. Again, early on in school committee meetings, we tend to, you know, the agendas aren't chock full. We tend to bring all the nice things we want. There's a harsh reality, and that is everything costs money and everybody's spending for their chunk of the change. So you want to know what people think, except for the few people who might sit on a committee or sit in the back of the room like me, put out some things of topics of interest and let the people talk.
Thank you, Dr. Orlando. Any additional comments?
Yeah, I make a comment. I'd like to cast a little light on your class advisor problem that you have. I think you have a very young staff at Newburyport High School. And when you have new teachers there, I won't say they're overwhelmed, but they put off their whole self into their first few years of teaching. Class advisor is a tremendous job, man hours for the class advisor. I took on a class of 1993 for 4 years, and I know, I think I put a minimum of 20, 25 hours a week. I tried to keep on, you have to keep on top of everything with your students. Every activity, you're behind the scenes coordinating everything, from class offices to every single activity that they do. You're here maybe two nights a week with the students, and your young teachers are a little bit afraid to step into something like that. So I think it needs to be built up with the teachers about the tradition, and it's a wonderful, rewarding thing to do. I will tell you, you get to know every single student. You're a surrogate mother. You have kids crying on your shoulders, but it's a joyful thing. At the end of your 4 years, you're utterly exhausted, but it's the kids love the class advisors. And I'll give credit to Sue Stone. Sue Stone has stepped in maybe 3 or 4 times and taken over from teachers that have run away from it because they just couldn't handle the hours that they put in. And she has been a class advisor maybe 4 or 5 times. It's amazing, that woman. I did it once, and I wouldn't say I would never do it again, but you really think twice about doing it twice. And for Sue to have the courage to keep stepping forward every time, it's amazing. But it's a lot of hours and a lot of work. So that's probably, the new teachers are afraid of it. They really are.
Yeah, Ms. Kennedy, there was.
I think she volunteered.
No, I'm retired.
So obviously, a lot of time on your hands, so it's probably not the best thing to say.
It was a wonderful experience. I will tell you, it was a wonderful experience.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the MSBA update, which I assume a significant piece of which will be delivered by Deirdre. I'd like to reserve some time for Nick and Stephanie as well to talk about some of the efforts that have been going on through the mayor and through City Hall. You're on.
Thank you. In your packet, you have the site visitation dates of the model schools for the Bresnahan School. We've gone to 3. We have 1 more to go to tomorrow in Connecticut. It's been very exciting. I can't speak highly enough about the principals and the staffs of these buildings that are taking us on these tours and spending the kind of time that they're spending with us. It's quite significant. We're well represented between parent, teachers, school committee, director of facilities, myself, Christina Davis, and so we're all finding our fellow colleagues and kind of walking around with them. Teachers are speaking to teachers. Steve has found every custodian and every facilities guy. We lose him to every school, to the boiler rooms and the roofs. He is filming and taking pictures and doing some PowerPoints. He just finished those. I've reviewed those quickly. I want to get them to the principals at these sites, at these model schools, just to make sure it's all right with them, that this is what is going to be posted on our website. And so things are going very, very well as far as that's concerned. The architects on September 22nd of these model schools came to Newburyport for a site meeting. 3 out of 4 did. As you know, 1 has dropped out because of issues of capacity. 3 out of 4 came September 22nd. At that time, they were given the schedule. They have proposals due in my office at noon this Thursday, and those proposals need to identify how they're going to adapt the school that they built in either Borndale, or if they built in Chickering, or wherever they built it. How are they going to adapt that school to our design build enrollment, our site, and our educational program? Those are due October 6th at noon. On October 6th at 6, we have a school building committee meeting for the committee to start to review those proposals, to understand them and gather questions, so that at the school building meetings scheduled for October 11th and October 12th at 6 o'clock, there will be public interviews of these architects, and their proposals will be presented to the community at whole, and the school building committee will be able to ask questions, clarifying questions, or cull out some more information from them. So that's the immediate schedule for your information at this particular time.
We're rolling. Right. Nick, Stephanie, I know that you've both been involved working at the city level.
Yes, it's been a very exciting period of time working with the building committee primarily and with the city to put together a team of people to support our efforts on a political level. We had a meeting yesterday on a Sunday evening at dinner time, kind of, sort of, when the Patriots were still playing on a rainy day.
And during a Boy Scout meeting, I might add.
And we still managed to get 80 or so people into that room who were interested enough in the elementary school to come out, hear about the process, and sign up and get involved. It was a wonderful cross-section in terms of ages, people with children in the schools, people whose children are well beyond the age of Bresnahan School, people who no longer have children in schools, ex-teachers, city councilors, we had it all. It was a wonderful feeling of community stepping up to something that's very important. We're very excited about working with them. They will be able to do more, some of the kinds of things that being a political ballot issue, once this becomes a ballot issue, when it's approved by the city council, we are limited in what we can do through the schools. And so they will be able to pick up that area and work with donations, et cetera, to fund the kinds of activities that will help us get the community behind this project, to have the community understand why it is so important to us. Why is one of the women that are talked about, we shouldn't walk away from this 50% off sale that we've got on a school, or a couple of schools. It's working very well. We're coordinating our efforts to make sure that what we can do, we will do from the schools, and whatever else is necessary, they will be able to pick up. From that point of view, I would just like to plug the website that we have for the Bresnahan School, www.newbres.org. So that hopefully everybody will remember. You can link to it from any of the school, any of the elementary schools have links to it, and the district site also has links to the site. That has all the information we've been talking about. It has pictures of the schools that the visitation committee went out to visit. It will have the presentations, or the film clips that Steve has been putting together will be posted on the site as well. We have all the documentation there. So it is a place where people who know and understand what is going on in the process. And this website is not aimed at informing the public in order to pass an override. This website is aimed at informing the public throughout the entire process until we have kids moving into that new school. So it's a living thing that will have constant changes to it. There are updates on it as of this afternoon, and of course, not surprising, the updates are, please come on October 11th and 12th to the meetings at 6 o'clock in City Hall to listen to the architects.
Thank you. Anybody has anything to add? Thanks. Thank you very much, both of you. These are very exciting times. The next item on the agenda, item 10, is the superintendent's report. I'll turn it over to Dr. Kerbel.
Okay, thank you. Just want to thank Deirdre, Assistant Superintendent Deirdre Farrell, again. I think I'm going to make sure it's in the minutes every other week for the yeoman's work, for all she's doing in terms of moving us forward. She presented last night, as Nick was saying, about 80 people, and she's leading, and she's doing a super job. So thank you, Deirdre. Just want to give an update on the nominations of the lower field. I think I told you that we're going to accept nominations. We got 90 responses. So what I'm going to do is reconvene this, the subcommittee that we had, okay? And then either October 17th or the first week in November, I'll come forward with a recommendation. Okay. I really would not want to respond at this point in terms of the kind of responses that we got, but 90 was more than I expected. So I want to thank people in the community who did respond. I attended the open house at Bresnahan School and the high school, and was impressed with the energy at the high school in terms of parents. And it's the first time I've seen so many parents at an event at the high school. I thought the energy was terrific. Same with the Bresnahan School. I do want to just let you know that recently at the leadership team of principals, assistant principals, and central office administrators had a leadership retreat at Art Currier's house, Newburyport resident, and sponsored by Art, and I facilitated a 4-hour session in terms of team building. So I thought it was terrific. I want to thank Art for that. And just want everybody to know that on October 17th, Angela Bick and I will present the MCAS results. I'm asking at this time all of our teachers and administrators who leave to come on that night. They're not obligated at all, but I'm just extending a courtesy invitation to them. And actually, we're asking their input on some of the results that we recently looked at. And so, think about comments that were made earlier about the 6:30 session. So maybe I'll put something out that if people want to talk about MCAS, not MCAS results, but what is this thing we call MCAS, and public conversation, I think that might be a good opportunity for parents to come out and talk about it. And I think that's it. Well, I do want to mention just one thing, sorry. The X2 portal, I think I mentioned, last time we met, the X2 portal was supposed to be up and running by October 1st, okay, and we're working out the kinks, and I feel positive that in a short time, parents will really like what they see in this thing called X2. And not only that, I'll be able to communicate regularly with all the parents in the district through X2. So once I see that all the kinks are out and we're ready to go, I think I'll have a regular communication using X2 as the vehicle.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent's report.
Yes, I have October 1 enrollment numbers for you. October 1 was on a Saturday, so today was the official date. We have a total of 2,371 students enrolled in Newburyport Public Schools. We have, of that number, we have 125 school choice students. The total enrollment is up 91 from last year. And let me break down the enrollment by building. At the Bresnahan School, we're up 27 students from last year. In the Brown School, we're up 9 students from last year. The Mullen School is down 13 students. The middle school is up 45, and the high school is up 22. Now that we've got these numbers together, I'm going to do some analysis as to where are the increases, why are there increases at certain levels, do we have move-ins, no move-outs, that kind of information, now that we've got this put together for you. So I'll have that for you at the next meeting.
Offhand, do you know the number of choice that we had last year?
We had 120 total school choice students last year, of which you had 16 that graduated.
So obviously, one of the things you'll be looking at is whether some of these numbers have changed because we've opened up choice.
Absolutely, absolutely. How many classes did we open? How many did we accept? How many registered? How many are in that October 1 number?
If I could just orient Mr. Cole on the last item on the agenda.
Sorry.
Yes, it does.
You missed it all.
Well, I can always watch on TV.
No.
Great. Usually, an item that we periodically put at the end of our meetings, my understanding is there's no executive session this evening. There's not a single dollar out on this end of this table at this point. We usually do meeting assessment, and Stephanie often has some items for that, and I think she does tonight.
I do. Okay. I would like to remind you, there are 2 NEF events coming up. First, on October 23rd, which is a Sunday, this is the rescheduled music, the Family Music Festival that's being held out at Spencer Pierce Little Farm. Tickets are still available, and you can purchase them online at Newburyportef.org. This should be a great time. They've got, at this point, I think it's either 5 or 6 bands. There'll be food, there'll be games going on. It's a real family-oriented event. All proceeds will go to the NEF towards the current campaign. And then the other item near and dear to my heart is the Newburyport's, the 4th annual Lighthouse Auction, which happens to be taking place on Saturday, November 19th at the Masonic Center on Green Street. We are piloting an online auction this year, a component, so you'll be able to view items online. We are always looking for donations. We are always looking for volunteers. If you are so inclined, or if you would like to purchase tickets to the event, you can also find out on Newburyportef.org. You can find the links to buy tickets. And if you're interested in being a volunteer, you can send us an email at nefauction@comcast.net.
Thank you. The only thing I would add to what you had to say is that my understanding is that there will be several local Newburyport students performing as part of E.J. Willexon's development program with his band.
Oh, great.
So it'll be an opportunity to see some local talent.
Move to adjourn.
So glad you made it.
I really am glad that you came.
Welcome back.
We'll still be waiting here for motion.
I wanted to contribute.
Second.
Best contribution.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
You nailed it, Mr. Cole.